Up next, Identifying Tech for Commercialization panel discussion.
Good morning. Welcome to today's panel on creating winners, identifying and curating tech for successful commercialization. I'm Andrew Cothrell, your moderator. I'm joined today by Josh Scratch from Ascend, Paul Jackson from Tech, and John Owen from Parallax. All individuals who are deeply involved in identifying and curating and shepherding technologies towards commercialization success. I'd like each of them to introduce themselves in turn and talk a little bit about those aspects of their roles that are most relevant to maturing technology towards commercialization. Josh, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Good morning. I'm Josh Scratch, Vice President of Operations and Data for Ascend Innovations. Ascend is a life science product company here in Dayton owned by the 3 hospital networks. So our purpose is really to solve unmet needs in health and human performance. The company's business model is kind of twofold, right? We've stood up a series of capabilities, including data science, software engineering, and design, really to be the sustainable business plan for Ascend in the near term, but then also working to lay the groundwork rather for a longer term vision of commercializing products. So my background is actually academically in math and operations research. So I started out at Ascend 4 years ago as a data scientist, helped stand up that capability, and now my role has transitioned more into business and strategy and looking at how we lay the groundwork to achieve that vision of commercializing products. So a lot of my role this year has been focused on building some of the strategic partnerships required to build that back-end framework to help us enable those pathways when it comes to coming up with a product and finding the right place to put it in terms of market access, customers, investors, things of that nature.
Great, thanks, Josh. Paul?
Good morning. I'm Paul Jackson. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Programs at the Entrepreneur Center, Tech. We are a commercialization center that is entirely focused on helping entrepreneurs and small businesses advance towards market entry. We run a small business development center, an SBDC, to help Main Street entrepreneurs, as well as both national and local programs tied more to technology startups. Most of what we provide are paid mentorship. We pay it, mentorship for companies and entrepreneurs, access to resources like prototyping or legal work, access to discount services, access to interns, access to Creative Suite. We are full service in trying to help entrepreneurs and companies advance towards their commercialization goals. Yeah, and we do a lot of training for the Air Force, which is our national side, where we help companies that have phase ones, SBIR phase ones, move to phase 2 by giving them a better handle on how to articulate their value proposition, especially for those commercialization sections, as well as we help connect to various TPOCs or other interested parties within the Air Force to enable those MOUs that people need, as well as just to make sure that there's a real there for the technology in terms of the use case for the military.
Terrific. John?
Hey everyone, I'm John Owen from Parallax Advanced Research. Our organization, one of our lines is supporting commercialization at the national, regional, and local level. I'm here today representing that local support. The team I run supports the Launch Dayton efforts in the community to grow our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So a lot of the programs our team runs are focused around kind of the top of this entrepreneurial and commercialization funnel, identifying opportunities, running networking events and things that help connect the community. And we're getting into some more programs that help you build your business goals, things like business planning boot camps. And we just recently launched a seed fund support for medtech commercialization grants.
Terrific. And just for background, my role is Chief Venture Officer at Cornerstone Research Group, where I'm pretty active in their venture studio, which is aimed at converting primarily DoD-funded SBIR technologies into transition and into commercialization. Also includes some NSF and NASA and NIH and other SBIR type technology developments, and hardly anything goes to market alone, right? So there are myriad opportunities for partnering and for collaborations along the way as those technologies get commercialized. So with that, guys, let's jump into it a little bit, and let's start with just a little bit about where in the spectrum you guys play, right? Because the commercialization journey is a long one from start to finish, and how you identify and sort of qualify the opportunities that you are going to put your resources on, right? Everybody has limited time, limited resources, long journey. How do you identify what's going to be in your funnel? What technologies are you going to work on maturing? Where are you going to place your bets? And kind of how full is your funnel? How many sort of opportunities a year, if you will, kind of pass through your organizations? John, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm really at the top of the funnel trying to push projects and entrepreneurs and researchers to these other programs in the community. So a lot of times I'm one of the first people, or someone on my team are one of the first people you talk to in the community, and sit down over coffee or now Zoom, and really hear your story and ask some probing questions to find out, are you a fit for things Paul is doing? Are you a fit for things Josh is doing? Are there other programs in the community that could support you? We also run like 2 programs that I think are relevant when we're talking about commercialization. Our Early Risers Academy. I'm looking there to see if have you figured out your value proposition yet? Because our program there can really help you define that and kind of put together those beginning steps of a business plan. We've had, I think, 40 people graduate that program over the last year. Our MedTech Launch Fund, I'm looking for, do you have some basic research on your technology already completed, but you don't have that alpha prototype yet to really show off to a potential customer or investor. So it's still, again, very early, but there's some technical milestones that have happened to get into that. And we've had 10 people apply to that program so far this year.
Terrific. Great. Paul, how about your tech?
So at Tech, we're involved really in all stages of the commercialization process. So we work with folks like John and his programs for to identify tech entrepreneurs who want to come into the system. We help mature them through, like I said, mentorship and resources. Then we help them with proposal writing for non-dilutive opportunities. We help connect them to investors to help do their pre-seed raise. We even help, if someone's doing a larger raise, we will even assist helping them go towards Series A. So all along that path, we're involved where we're trying to help with customer discovery, with defining value proposition, with providing the resources the entrepreneur or the small business needs to advance forward. Now, a lot of that, of course, is local to Dayton because of the nature of the funding, but we also do TABA work with individual companies if they get a SIBR that has TABA on it and they want the help from us to advance towards commercialization. We can play there, bringing our subject matter experts or our EIRs to bear to really help advance the company forward. In terms of participants in our programs, we have about 85 or 90 clients right now within the local region. We also, but that's very limiting in terms of it makes it sound smaller than what we really are. So we run this training for SIBR TAP for advancing companies from phase 1 to phase 2. We've run 4 cohorts this year already. Each one has around 10 companies, and so that's 40 companies that we help from there. And almost none of them, only a few of them are in our local ecosystem. Most of them are national, and we will be running at least 2 cohorts of that next year. In that process, we'll hear from probably twice as many of those people, of those companies, from a winnowing process where we'll do interviews one-on-one to understand if they fit and if we can really help them with the kind of services we provide. So we see hundreds of companies, honestly, every year to try to figure out how best we can help them. And they'll fit into one of our programs, or if they don't fit into one of our programs, we try to help hand them off to where they could get benefit. Whether that's just direct connect straight to Air Force through some of our contacts, or it's a med tech company that needs to do some data stuff, we hand them over to Josh. There's a when you come to the Entrepreneur Center, we're there to help, and so we do everything we can, even if you don't fit exactly into our programs. We try to find the program that will help you.
Wow. So definitely sort of a front door
Yeah.
function there for folks who want to mature some technologies. Josh, how about at Ascend Innovations?
Yeah, so right now, in the stage of growth of our company, we're really focused on early stage concepts and how we bring those to life. So 3 avenues to how we identify those technologies. One, naturally, is our own internal IP and products. Interestingly, we've found service engagements where I talked about data science, software engineering, and design that have resulted in us building a product for a client, but being able to retain that IP with the rights to scale. Those are few and far between, but we've found a couple of them now that are viable technologies in our pipeline. So that's number one. Number 2 is co-development arrangements. So when you have organizations like Tech that have a life science medtech portfolio, we often look at companies coming through that and ones that would fit with the access that we have by way of the unique positioning of the company with hospital ownership and different strategic partnerships that we've built. The third thing is strategic consulting. So same example, there may be a company that comes through the Tech portfolio that we don't really have a development role in from a technical standpoint, but we may be able to enable them access that would otherwise be really hard to achieve. As far as the criteria, it really has to be something that has a direct tie into the product channels that we're creating. I talked about forming that framework, that groundwork on the back end to enable us to create a viable product commercialization pipeline, right? We do not believe in going it alone. We believe in strategic partnerships on the back end to help us really get to where we need to be and get a product off the ground. A lot of that boils into investment, customers, market access. Those are all critical aspects of things that we look for in a potential product to ensure that we can truly shepherd it along. As far as the size of our funnel, I'd say we assess maybe 10 to 15 opportunities a year at this point. I suspect that'll grow, but we really keep it tight and focused on more of the active pipeline. So right now it's kind of a loose rule of thumb that 3 active products in our pipeline at a time, with the intent of one of those being something that really has a chance of being spun out. Doesn't mean the other 2 won't be successful, but we've really got to have those appropriate triggers to warrant spinning something out into its own company. So that's where we stand right now.
Okay, very good. So with Tech and Parallax really more facilitative, Josh, you guys are actually doing the lift, right? So you're having to limit your funnel because defocus will kill you when you're when you're actually in the execution mode.
Yep.
So what's hot right now as you guys look across the funnels you manage and the tech that is generating excitement either in the market or through investors or through collaborations with strategics. From where I sit at Cornerstone in the Venture Studio, electric aviation, hypersonics, medical always seems to be hot. What are you guys seeing as sort of areas that are really attracting energy right now?
For Ascend, it's naturally healthcare and life sciences, right? I mean, things revolving around delivery of care services, mental health and addiction, chronic disease management, and a host of other areas that are really these big topics of discussion for the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry in general is on the cusp of completely revolutionizing the way things are done. I'd say over the next 5 to 10 years, it's a great place to be. Even if you look at like COVID and the impacts that has had, it has created an instant shift, literally, to telehealth, right? So you have all of these organizations in the March, April, May timeframe scrambling to get these telehealth capabilities in place, and CMS following through and changing some of the reimbursement strategies to allow them to bill more fully for telehealth services. And that's really proven that it's enabled access to care for a broader audience, right? You got to think about some of the big issues in healthcare, transportation, right? Some people can't get access to care because they don't have transportation. So something like telehealth really expands that access and is going to be on the forefront of innovation in healthcare over the next coming years. So for us, if we really look for things that have a strong value proposition, right? How are you going to reduce cost and improve care? And really have put together a focused business plan that articulates how you're going to go about doing that. Have you talked to customers that really allows you to understand what it is they need and how it is actually solving a problem for them?
And Josh, given the complexities of the economics of healthcare and all the different ways the different players get paid or don't get paid, is that something Ascend helps those opportunities navigate as well?
Absolutely. I mean, we enable those conversations with the healthcare providers themselves. When I talk about those strategic partnerships, it's hospitals, it's group purchasing organization, it's major organizations and other industries. I mean, allowing us to really go in and have that conversation, whether it's with a clinician or somebody on the billing side. I mean, to really go in and understand how are you billing for these services. And not only that, but I talk about our data science capability. Well, part of that is our community layer, which has enabled access to a really broad set of healthcare data. And we use that to be able to go in and look at different services that are billed for, implanting different medical devices and things like that, and understanding how are hospitals actually reimbursing themselves for these technologies so that you can truly understand your revenue projections for whatever it is that you're building.
Nice. Paul, John, what are you seeing in terms of trends, areas of excitement?
See lots of med tech for sure, where it's at least a third of our portfolio, honestly, and it's a lot of what Josh was just describing. We're also seeing a decent uptick in software from the AI side, not so much building the AIs, but leveraging the AI algorithms to comb through mass amounts of data to actually generate actionable activity or insight for users, whether that's for looking at trying to reduce the information flow to someone because they have too many things coming at them, and this just makes it more critical, or just taking data that isn't utilized right now and trying to bring it together into a meaningful way. And so I think we've seen a lot of interest and uptick in that. It's probably the most boring answer you're going to get because I mean, oh, AI and med tech, it's true.
There's a shocker.
That's it's that said, tech sees technologies across the board, right? We see physical devices, we see sensors, we see ag tech. I mean, we see everything, but there is a lean in terms of the what we've seen recently the most. We're seeing a lot of med tech and the sort of that software AI piece.
It's interesting to me, Paul. If you have sensors and you have AI, one of the dilemmas for people with those technologies is there's so many use cases you can chase, right? You can take sensors and AI, and even at Cornerstone, apply it to protect an endangered species, all the way to automate the monitoring of the health status of an individual. You can interpret vocalizations. You can take visual data and break it down. The applications are just so endless that for just picking one to move forward with, I think sometimes is a challenge. Do you see a lot of pivots in that space, Paul, or do people pretty much identify their market need and go after it?
I definitely see a lot of pivots, especially because frequently when someone comes in the door, I have this AI algorithm. It can look at this set of data and it's going to be amazing. And we say, okay, well, who are you going to sell it to? And they say, well, everyone's going to want it. It's going to improve, everyone's health is going to be improved, or everybody, suddenly manufacturing is going to go through the roof because of our system. It's like, okay, that's nice. Who are you going to sell it to? And so as they go on that path towards identifying a real customer, identifying how to actually sell it, that's also a key issue. You can't just, there are companies that just sell data, but just doing that is extremely difficult, and you have to package it the right way to actually be meaningful. And so we definitely see pivots on that path. as with any other technology commercialization, right? It's frequently it's rare from my experience that what you think you have today is actually what you're going to be selling in a year or two if you haven't really identified those customers properly yet.
Yeah, both what you sell and who you sell it to
Yeah.
move a lot. John, what about from your perspective, kind of in the early stages
Yeah.
of the funnel?
So I just pulled up the stats for our early risers program. So it's a kind of a first opportunity to pitch your business in front of a friendly audience of community and business leaders, and make an ask of the audience for connections to a warm lead at a company or help with manufacturing. We see a lot of software as a service opportunities, so apps and other kind of web plays. Med tech is our second highest, followed by consumer products, food and beverage, and then materials and manufacturing. So it
Okay.
runs the gamut.
So all of you see a lot of opportunities every year. You interact with lots of different things that could become viable products or viable businesses. What what do you see kind of over and over that you wish people would get right? That you're like, oh man, if there's a lesson I could impart to the entrepreneurial community, to people who might be tuned in here thinking, hey, I have a tech that might be worth maturing towards commercialization. What's the heads up you'd like to give them of, oh, please don't be yet another one that comes in with this? Paul, why don't we start with you on that? You see the most deals per year.
I mean, we see a lot of deals. I don't think we have any specific go away opportunities. I think the critical thing for us is identifying that value proposition. If you can't do that, we offer training to help you do that. But if you can't articulate the value proposition to a real customer, you're not ready for service. You're not ready for advancing further on that pathway. And so, I mean, I guess it's more about go do a little bit more homework. Go. Don't just read a market report either. Like actually, go talk to someone in the industry that you want to sell to. Turns out doctors, they don't buy stuff in hospitals, right? Hospitals buy stuff, or there's nuance in there, but ultimately there's a whole administration you have to sell to, and oftentimes a lot of the med tech stuff we see, they're like, oh, well, doctors are going to love this. Okay, well, that's nice, but you need to talk about the economics of how that business operates. And so I guess, again, I don't want to say that we turn particular opportunities away, but we do see a lot of early stage stuff where we need people to dive in a little bit further before we're ready, before we can really apply our services or our assistance.
Okay. Josh, what about at Ascend?
3 different things there, and Paul just
God.
rattled off all 3. But I would go back to the value proposition and being able to say that succinctly. There's some great kind of Mad Libs for value propositions out there where if you can sum your business up to my company or tech does Y to help Z do whatever their problem, help them with whatever their problem is through a secret sauce. If you can sum that down into one sentence, you have done a lot of work to get to that point, and it shows that when you're able to present it that way.
Yeah, the less words you're allowed, the more work it is, right? So
yeah, and these guys their funnels are much bigger, right? Because they're engaging companies at that very early stage of that starting point, really. So by the time things come to us, there's usually a defined value proposition. That's not usually an issue. And if it is an issue, I'm going back to these guys saying, what are you doing? Right. But for us, it's really like it's 4 things. Solid focused business plan. Like, how are you actually going to make money, and who are you selling to? Like you've been reiterating, Andy. Oftentimes you'll see commercialization strategies that are very sporadic and targeting every market possible. So, looking at, hey, we can solve this for chronic disease management, for mental health and addiction, all the things. Like, no, you got to pick a focused path as that first go-to market for your prototype or for your launch product. After that, it's evidence of customer discovery. Like, have you gone out to really have those conversations? And a lot of times that's what we can help enable, but there's got to be some level of indication that there's been some research done and some discussions had to really understand, like, is this something that customers want to buy? A plan to raise capital. How are you going to fund this product? Again, something we can usually help with at a pre-seed stage. But by the time it's coming to us, it's got to have some foundation, some wheels to the car. And then key relationships. What are those relationships that you've gone out to build to really help open the door to the markets or the industries that you want to get into?
Yeah,
Terrific.
I think they're adding in, Andy, the difference between a customer and a user is big. So if you try to sell me a time management system, as a project manager, great, but you need to talk to the head of our operations to actually get someone to pay for it.
Absolutely, absolutely right, and I see that over and over as well as um, some customer discovery is better than no customer discovery, but you can't just talk to the person who's delighted to have it in their hand, right? How does it get to their hand, right? That's usually a multi-step journey, right? And understanding who makes decisions and who influences and who grants access, so you can even have those conversations, can be a real challenge for entrepreneurs. And I think that's where some of the organizations like we have here today can really assist, when someone who's really maybe a little more technology focused, a scientist, an engineer, that's not a world they're familiar with, right? And so yes, they sincerely want to do the right thing and advance the tech, but for them, the part they know is my tech, right? My tech does this, my tech does that, and okay, well, who cares that it can do that? Who's gonna let you get to users? All those things are challenging to navigate, and so reaching out for help, I think, makes a lot of sense for companies in that situation. So you talked about some of the services that are offered, and it ranges from something like money to entrepreneurs and residents to actual hands-on, um, working with products. What are some of the resources around in our ecosystem? I know we may have people tuned in from well outside the Dayton region, but looking at sort of Dayton and Southwest Ohio, what are some resources maybe that some of these people who are trying to mature technologies don't know about, haven't heard about? My favorite is always the Dayton Library for Market Research. Holy crow, they have a full suite of services to really help you strengthen your market research. And it's a lot better than just sitting at your computer and trying to guess what term to Google. And so that's great. And it's free. What else is out there? What comes to mind as sort of the hidden gems in our ecosystem that can help somebody move something forward?
So I'll talk at a really high level and then let John and Paul get more focused, given that they're more rooted in a lot of the community entrepreneurial services. But to me, this is, when we talk about air and industry, Dayton's a perfect place, right? You've got Right Pat and the two major industries, defense and healthcare. So you've got Right Pat with AFRL talking about health and human performance, and then you have a really large healthcare industry. So one thing I would say is, don't hesitate to go ask for advice or build relationships, right? When it comes to navigating cybers, there are so many companies in our region. I mean, between CRG, JJR, Tangram, Mile 2, like all these defense companies out there that have navigated these cybers to, phase threes. Go talk to them. Just say, hey, I need some advice on how to navigate this, but I also need to understand the commercialization plan. There's a lot of organizations out there that have experience, and people in Dayton are typically very willing to have a conversation with somebody that's trying to learn how to go about doing something that they've already done. So I'd say like that's not a really specific answer to specific programs, but going out and finding those right people to have conversations with, I think we have a lot of that in Dayton to offer.
I think that's a really great insight, Josh, and I would reinforce your point that uh, to a person universally, the folks behind these companies that have gotten some traction are accessible people, right? They want to see others succeed as well, and are always willing to have a conversation. So that's a great insight. John, Paul, anything jump to mind for you guys?
I think John's program actually is a hidden gem where there are so many connections that what he's running can enable, and so many people are like, "What? I didn't know this existed." It's kind of the same thing for us, where people don't know what they don't know in terms of the resources. And so connecting with John or with me is particularly beneficial for entrepreneurs, because we're already working with all these other organizations where we can link people over to the chamber for their for the work they do with the business roundtable, for the bankers roundtable, or we can link people over to Ascend for the customer discovery elements. And so I think I want to generalize sort of my answer to outside our region. Just there's these kinds of these commercialization hubs that exist across the United States. Tech is not unique in that regard. There are places in Ann Arbor. There's places in Chicago. Go to any major city, you will find some incubator or accelerator that has a broader footprint than just a bit of programming that they run, and they are connected to the folks that you really do benefit from getting connected to. And so I think that's the hidden gem that a lot of cyber companies actually miss, because, let's say you've been doing a couple of cybers, you're good at what you're doing. It's you and a couple of people doing some good R&D, phase ones, maybe a phase two. You're doing that. You don't realize this broader ecosystem can oftentimes exist right next door to you, and you can access it, and that can help for a dual use of technology for moving forward. And so oftentimes I feel that cyber companies can miss that opportunity because it's not laser focused on cybers. And similarly, companies that have no exposure to cybers are missing out on non-dilutive cash to advance their technology. And so, and Dayton is one of the top regions of the country in terms of per capita wins of cybers, because we have all these defense companies, and it's an opportunity that people do miss though. And like Josh said, there's so many people who know that process that just connecting through this system will help you find the right people who can then tell you how to approach it. From an Ohio perspective, the Ohio Federal Research Network is a missed opportunity frequently. They offer dollars that are similar to phase two. And John actually works at the organization that runs it, so I'm stealing a little bit of his thunder. I apologize. But OFRN is a great resource because it's dollars coming out of the state that are there to solve a federal research need by leveraging company capability. And also in Ohio is the TVSF program, which is also overlooked all too often, where if there's a technology coming out of Air Force, coming out of a university, it doesn't even have to be in Ohio. It could be out of anywhere. If you're going to found a startup company around it in Ohio, you can go get some $100,000 to help build the beta prototype. That's fantastic. You don't even have to know it really works. You have to know it works in the lab, but beyond that, you build a business plan around it. They'll put funding behind it and they'll let you advance it along. And it's a missed opportunity because, it's not, there aren't 100 applications every round. There's 20 or 30, and so many more people could be approaching it if they knew more about it. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, I think the number of programs that are free in the area that you can actually walk in and talk to someone and get real feedback and advice. One program that is run under Parallax, Tech Warrior. If you are in the military space and need real customer discovery, you can work with the actual, military that are going to use your end product to get product feedback on the spot. Paul mentioned a couple non-dilutive capital sources. The Kiva, there's a Kiva chapter in Dayton where you can raise up to $10,000 in crowdfunding, non-dilutive, 0% interest loan. If you look at things like the Soin Award for Innovation, I believe that's a $25,000 grant that's given once a year. The one that always jumps out to me is the flyer pitch at UD. That's a significant prize for going through that competition. I think most people think that it's only for students. It's if you're a UD alum or if you have a UD student on your team, you're able to go after that program.
Terrific. Yeah, that's a really great program. And to your point, John, the financial incentives there are unusually large for that kind of competition. So we've had a question come in from a viewer. Are there stages or types of prototypes in view of phase two funding, i.e., markup, operational, alpha, final? So I think they're maybe referring to like the TRL of a prototype as it advances. What relationship do you see between prototypes and launch products? Can you discuss importance of IP and its position in the company development process, i.e., early, later? So let's, um, I'm going to sequence that how I sequence them in my mind and say, let's talk about the IP piece first. Um, how critical is it to in the early stages of trying to mature a technology towards transition or commercialization that 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 IP landscape be nailed down? And what does that mean to nail down an IP landscape? What kind of work is actually involved in that? Who wants to take that one?
I'm going to point to Josh. Josh, take that one.
I'll get you warmed up, Josh, because this is a process that we spend quite a bit of time on at Cornerstone as well, because there's multiple elements to it, right? There's what is the best way to protect this, right? So let me back up. Even if there's no intellectual property that you want to protect, you're going to have a hard time making a business. Any disagreement there, generally speaking, that's going to be an uphill battle if there's nothing protectable that differentiates you from what anybody else can do. Then your only weapon is to out execute somebody, and that's hard. um, Once you have identified, hey, you know what, this is the thing that makes me different, this is the thing that makes me better, how do I protect that? Fundamentally, you can keep quiet about it, right? That's trade secret. Or you can try to formally protect it through the patent process. And if you decide to go the patent process, or even if you're a trade secret, there are two sides to the coin. There is, what are my odds of being able to protect what I want to protect? Because the patent office doesn't let you patent just any old thing. And who else is out there that has already done something like this, whether it's in my field or not, that might keep me from being able to do this, or can easily do it another way, because some patents are fairly easy to work around. Um, all that said, before, while you're still in the non-dilutive funding stage, I think it is um, something to pay attention to. It's when you want to move out of that non-dilutive funding phase, or get into more programmatic levels of support. Paul, I don't know if you guys have criteria around IP for some of the releasing some of the dollars you have, but certainly from an outside investor standpoint, or even a strategic partner standpoint, if you don't understand and have filed what you want patented, and don't have a short list of competitors you're keeping an eye on from an intellectual property standpoint, then you're not ready to take on a strategic partner or to take on investor dollars. Does that resonate with you guys?
That was the big thing I was going to say, is if you're looking to raise capital, you have to find a way to defend your IP. They're going to say, what's your IP and how do we protect it? Because that's what's of value to them in putting dollars into your organization. And from a phase two, drawing it back to the original question of a SIBR, I mean, that's a lot of what they're going to be looking for in a phase two to be able to score more points is, are you able to go out and raise capital to take this thing to commercial markets? And in that case, yeah, it is very important if you're wanting to truly execute on that. And it's a long road. I mean, we're just now getting a patent that we filed two and a half years ago, something like that. And so,
that's actually not bad.
Yeah, right. Right. So, it just depends too. Like if it's a medical device, you're going to want to protect that because people are replicating that very quickly. If it's something like a digital mobile application or something like that, you got to find that balance between how important is it to sink the time and resources and money into going after that patent or however you're choosing to protect it, versus the time it actually takes to get to market and getting customers, getting somebody buying it. And like you said, Andy, I think it was a really good point of like, what's your competition? How much do you truly need to worry about somebody else having something that could compete with yours?
And if you go the trade secret route, the other thing I looked for back when I actually managed to fund a little bit was, um, not not just patent or trade secret, but if you do the trade secret route, have you done the work? Do you have the non-disclosure agreements with all your employees and confidentiality agreements? Do have you actually set it up pragmatically to protect your trade secret? Or are you just saying, oh, we're going to make this trade secret and it's going to be great? You have to put some infrastructure, you have to put some effort, some teeth behind that. We are winding down here. I got the note here on time. So let's close out with some thoughts on as companies start to the technology is maturing. Maybe they're getting ready to transition. Maybe they're getting ready to commercialize. What what are some things, some thoughts, some closing thoughts you can share on lessons learned as somebody transitions from a development company, an R&D company, to a selling and execution company? Because that's the big change, right? From I'm working on it to, oh, I'm going to actually sell it, whether that's to the military or whether that's to civilian customers. What have you what thoughts do you have about that transition to share with folks?
Very simple. Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I was going to say that a lot of R&D companies don't have to worry about their ultimate customer, they or the ultimate user. They worry about the funding source, right? So if Air Force says this is the thing we need, they do the work and they get the funding on a SBIR, and it's great. The problem is when you shift to selling, you really do need to understand who's going to pay for it. And so the act of doing customer discovery is vital. Before you're ready to sell, you need to do that. And if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself in a marketplace that makes no sense to you, and your product's going to falter because you haven't done that homework. And so that homework is so vital to be able to doing that shift from the development to actually selling. And yes, you should do it actually while you're developing, because then you're going to develop the right thing if you do the customer discovery. But if you haven't done it yet, you have to do it before you just open up your doors, put up a website, and say, "Hey, we're selling it." I mean, it just doesn't work that way. It's a heavy lift.
100% agree. Like, you should not be in that R&D phase and thinking, well, I'll figure out selling it when I get there. When you make that transition should be to follow your commercialization plan. At that point, you should already have a plan before you're ready to make that transition to say, okay, I have a market ready product and I'm ready to sell. Before you get to that point, while you're still in R&D, you should have a letter of intent from a customer. You should have somebody saying, I want to buy this when you build it. And that's something that's critical and very helpful to the SBIR world. If you can show, especially in that early stage phase one, that you have a customer that's ready to buy this on the commercial side, or even commercially speaking, internal to the government or military, you really got to have that customer ready to buy the product.
Yeah, I would say connect with the people in the community. Any of the four of us can help with that, because there are programs and resources out there to help you as you make that transition from selling to the government to selling to private industry. And we've got programs and services that are here to help you.
Yep. So you can't just hire a head of sales and hope that it goes well. Very good. So guys, we're in our closing minutes here. How do I find all this help? Who do I call? Like, can I look you guys up on the web? Are you there? Can I get your emails and phone numbers? How hard is it for me to plug into this if I'm somebody with a technology that I think is worth maturing?
I think we're all on LinkedIn, right? And so you can find us that way. You can find us at our various our organization's websites. They all have email addresses posted. If not for us specific, at least general ones that can be routed to us. But most of the time, our individual email addresses are listed in numerous
terrific
places.
Well, we've got to wrap it up. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. Really appreciated the conversation and hope that the audience did as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.